With the new Cosmic Creations expansion, I thought it would be a perfect time to create an updated video on the best deck for beginners to use in the game. In this video we'll look at 3 budget versions of competitive decks which use a lot of cards from the pre-made decks you begin the game with, or a high number of common cards that you can easily obtain. Hope you enjoy. This is Legends of Runeterra, best decks for beginners. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on the bell notifications too. So let's dive in. This video has been done in collaboration with BomberTV. Frostbite midrange budget builds on a lot of the cards you receive in the Freeze and Decay deck as a part of the login bonus. This is a variation of a meta deck that revolves around cards having 5 power and a Frostbite mechanic called Frostbite Midrange, which consists of cards from Freylord and Noxus, unlike Freeze and Decay which has the Shadow Isles instead of Noxus. This is a budget version of the deck which is reflected with the high number of common cards, 21 in total, and no exotics, and is more themed towards the Frostbite part of the meta deck version. The main idea of this deck is to Frostbite enemies and level up Ashe as soon as possible, as she's basically a win condition. When she levels up, any unit with 0 attack will be unable to block, and this includes Frostbitten units. So Ashe already Frostbites a unit during attack, add in say a Harsh Winds on top of that, and your opponent will be unable to block most of the attackers, giving you a win condition. To get there, we'll use both spells like Brittle Steel and units such as Icevale Archer. Both of these cards utilise the Frostbite keyword. They both have a low mana cost, so you can really start the Ashe levelling up process very early on in the game. To get even more advantage from our Frostbite strategy, we'll use challenges such as Trifarian Glory Seeker and Rhymefang Wolf, basically to value trade the enemy units. Glory Seeker can challenge a unit with Frostbite to quickly take them out with its 5 damage, and Rhymefang's effect will instantly kill a Frostbitten unit regardless of their health. 2 fantastic cards in this deck. A good early game can be kicked off with Omen Hawk and a Vorison Trapper, which can buff all the cards you draw, or you can draw a 5/5 Enraged Yeti respectively. So overall this deck really is good from start to end, which is obviously going to be your mid-range peak as it's a mid-range deck. So some pretty solid options, and this can easily be upgraded into the well-known meta archetype, Frostbite Midrange. Jinx Aggro Budget is a budget version of the discard aggro deck which is currently in the meta. It features cards from Piltover and Zorn and Noxus and revolves around the discard mechanic. Lots of cards have a low cost with no cards costing more than 4 mana, and the only 4 mana card cost is your boss Jinx. It is very budget with 27 cards being common and no exotic cards feature in this deck. The main idea of this deck is to be aggressive. We do this by taking advantage of the discard mechanic, both to draw cards and never run out of fuel, as basically most of the cards in this deck require you to discard a card to activate their effects. On top of this, many cards benefit from being discarded, so this synergizes perfectly. Cards like this include Flame Chompers and Jury Rig. Your ideal opening hand is basically summoning a Zorite Urchin, which effect discards a Jury Rig, which is in turn then summoned when discarded. This means you can deal 3 damage on your very first turn, which is perfect for this aggro deck, which is all about dealing quick damage. We also like to go wide, which means having lots of units on the field, and take advantage of Arena Battlecaster, which buffs all the units' attacks and goes basically in for like kills, so you can really deal quick damage in a very aggressive style. Later in the game, your opponent will start to defend themselves, and we can finish them off with burn cards such as Get Excited and Knocks Them for 4, which deals directly to their units or Nexus. Aim for the opponent's Nexus primarily, but aim to take out your opponent's key units if you feel this would be more beneficial. Your boss card is Jinx, who has quick attack to basically take out your opponent's units, and fits into the theme of this discard deck as she levels up when you have no cards in your hand, which is obviously going to be easier if you're discarding them all. When she's leveled up, she will help you draw cards each turn with her effect, which obviously you can in turn discard, and she also generates a Super Mega Death Rocket, which deals 4 to your opponent's Nexus and 1 to all their units, a very powerful burn card. Overall, a very consistent and fast deck which can be upgraded into the well-known meta archetype, Discard Aggro. This is Elise Burn Budget, which features cards from Shadow Isles and Noxus. It's a very aggressive deck with all but 2 decimates costing 3 or less mana. It's a very budget with 29 common and no exotics, and has lots of cards that either deal burn damage, basically direct damage to your opponent's Nexus, or spider themed cards like the one your champion has in this deck, Elise. The main idea of this deck is to burn your opponent as quickly as possible, and you can accomplish this with lots of burn cards like Nox and Favor, and units like Doombeast. Elise can be quite threatening with all the spiders in the deck, which obviously makes her level up quickly. The spiders themselves work very well together, and a Frenzied Skitterer can be devastating on a wide board, where you have lots of units, and obviously all these spiders with the fearsome, your opponent just won't be able to block them. This deck has lots of very cheap cards, but also runs the risk of running out of fuel quickly, aka having no cards in your hand, and it obviously does this pretty quickly, which is why we draw lots of drawing cards like Glimpse Beyond and Stalking Shadows. Stalking Shadows is pretty great, as we play lots of on-play cards, which obviously have certain effects like Frenzied Skitterer and Doombeast. So these obviously have effects that activate when summoned, and Stalking Shadows can basically create more copies of them, so these on-play effects can be duplicated easily. After you've dealt enough damage in the early game, it's time to burn your opponent out, before they can really do anything in the later game to you. Spells like Nox and Favor and Decimate can quickly do this by dealing direct damage to the opponent's Nexus. Overall, this deck is always very present with some extent of popularity in any meta, and although it's already fine by itself, it can easily be upgraded with some cards, but obviously this is really at the discretion of the deck builder. But you're never going to go wrong with any Shadow Isles Noxus deck, as they have a lot of really similar themes that work well together. And there we go guys, here are 3 budget decks that hopefully will help you get started in the game. As you can see, Noxus appeared in all 3, as lots of aggro cards are common, which are usually the simplest cards to use as well, where you basically just trying to deal as much damage as quickly as possible. This analysis has been done by BomberTV, a Masters tier player which does gameplays at Masters tier level and deck guides just like this one. Link to his channel is in the pinned comment or in the card above. Which of these decks is your favourite? I would love to hear in the comments. So this channel looks at all sorts of decks and cards to do with Legends of Runeterra, including top 10 lists, best meta decks, patch predictions, and so much more. Please feel free to check out the rest of my videos, as I really feel I've got some unique content here which you guys would love. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications too. See you next time guys.